Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Lookout. Today's 2nd of September, and we're going to do a live stream here on Six Rivers Fire and the Rum Fire in Southwest Oregon. It's gonna gotta wake up. Some mornings are easier than others. My name's Zeke Lunder. I live in Chico, California. I'm a wildfire analyst and been working on wildfires since the late 90s. And I take publicly available information and interpret it and report on it. So that's what you're seeing, is me giving you some unofficial wildfire information. These fires have been Six Rivers Fire has been burning for about a month, lightning caused, and still kind of barely holding on to it, still inside their box. There's been a lot done on this fire. It's been interesting to watch it unfold. And as far as I can tell from the information from last night at 9 p.m., things are going pretty well right now. So let's jump in and look at a map, and we'll talk about it. Okay, usually we've been starting looking over Willow Creek, but that side of the fire hasn't been quite as exciting last couple of days, so we're going to start here right over Trinity Village and Hawkins Bar. This map we're looking at is kind of the same as we've been doing every day, where yellow is areas that are kind of scattered heat and cooling down. Red are areas of the most intense heat. And white lines are the past 24 and 48 hours of fire spread. So what's happening here is yesterday evening, there was, I was going to turn on yesterday's drone imagery. So yesterday evening, late night, the drone had kind of captured them dragging some fire down to this Ziegler Point Road. And basically over the last 24 hours, not much has grown past their control lines there. So we've got dozer line, a road that was prepped as line, and some hand line probably tying that together. And the fires, they fired off of that. We got fire down to it, night before last. And yesterday the fire kept backing down. And as of 9 p.m., this is where they're showing the fire. Kind of still above Ziegler Point Road and above this line they've got. Fire's kind of backing down over here in this area where this area over here was fired a couple weeks ago. I think at that time we said, hey, good, they held this road, but it still could creep around on them because the backside of this is uncontained. So sometimes we get lucky. Predictions come true. Other times it doesn't happen at all. So the good news here, though, is just that they've got dozer line up here along the 2015 Happy Fire Scar and along the edge of the Monument Fire here from last year. And this is pretty much wrapped up. This area here, there's been no real gain by the fire in the last 24 hours. So that's what we got to report right now. It's supposed to be hot and dry, and nothing's set in stone, but that's good news so far. We're just going to jump over here real quick to the mouth of Clear Creek over here by Horse Linto Campground. Fire here is continuing to kind of back in on itself, kind of wrapping up what they started here with the goal for the last week, really, since the fire got established into this drainage, has been to tie up this edge, and it's cooling off now. So just to kind of summarize, fire started up here, back down into here, was kind of fired out here, and then last week the fire made a run up and back down here, ran up in here. They've been firing this for over a week, and they held it at that Horse Linto Ridge, Lone Pine Ridge. Still holding up in the top here. So we'll see what this weather does, but this could be wrapped. So far so good. No real spread over the major control lines for except this spot for the past week, really. So, nice job, people. A lot of talk on this fire about the tactics. The idea that we had our fire crews basically do a ginormous prescribed burn in August. Going to be a lot of attention focused on the effects, the fire effects. And even people that are always saying, put all the fires out, are saying, what would this fire look like if we had just protected the communities and let it burn? And I think it's a fair question. We've talked about whether or not this 2-year-old burn scar would have held up this edge of the fire. We've talked also about if it would really hurt anything to have let the fire burn out here in the wilderness, to burn into this 2015 fire and clean up the mess from 7-year-old burn. It wouldn't have really spread into monument fire because it's only a year old. So a lot of money spent, a lot of exposure to firefighters. And the main gain, besides just letting it burn, is that we didn't burn this little finger here. We didn't burn out in the wilderness. But it's a good question. What if we just, it's been almost 3 weeks since this whole edge was cold and the community was basically safe from this fire. And in the meantime, the fire backed down the hill, ran up here like it wanted to. It backed down this side. The only place we really had much to say about it was that we kept the fire severity on this ridge potentially from being higher when the fire jumped and ran up. But yeah, I think it's a fair question. And the fact that it's coming from so many different directions, to me, that's interesting. So we'll keep talking about this fire. We're going to get some good satellite image here in the next couple of days as the smoke clears out to better see the initial severity of this. And we'll talk about it. All right. Point our magic map machine to the north and hop down here onto Rum Creek Fire. Rum Creek looks like it's going pretty well. Today's red flag warning for winds and super hot and dry. They've got some fire on the ground, but not as much as they could be worried about. So it's the weather's serious, everything else, but we'll talk about kind of what you've got on the ground for heat here. So just to kind of review on this fire. This fire started off up here on top of this bluff and got was part of a bust of maybe a dozen lightning fires they got going. And oftentimes on a big lightning bust, we pick up all the fires that we can, and we're stuck with the one that we couldn't quite get to. That's what happened with this one. They put out the 8 or 10 other fires that got started by the bust, but this one, they couldn't get to it. So it became established out in here. Kind of started out. So we're looking at kind of Rainy Falls Trail on the Rogue River. Fire got kind of established out in here, back down into this inaccessible kind of area, spotted down into here, and then we got a couple days of wind that blew it out towards Galice. So it's kept moving out there. So let's just start at Galice like we have been, and we'll take a little drive around the fire. Like I said the other day, I don't have this fire team's not uploading their fire lines to the public server where I get my data, so I can't make as fancy a map as the other fire. I do have the dozer lines here from 2018, and like we've said before, we end up opening the same dozer lines over and over because they happen to be in the most tactical, kind of useful places. So this kind of dark black is the fire's edge, burned area, and white line is the past 24 hours of spread. So you can see that uphill from Galice here, we're really showing no heat on the IR, and the fire hasn't spread here in 2 days. There's dozer line in here. Out here, just to the east of Galice, there's some hand line on this knob here, but it also looks like it's kind of backing here down towards the river. I'm not sure if the hand line they have out here is holding it or what's happening. But it is surrounded by river. And what we've seen in the Klamath Mountains is that oftentimes the river is holding these fires. This fire did hop the river on a windy day. But right now it's surrounded by a black of its own fire. On this side it's got a 4-year-old burn, dozer line, 4-year-old burn. So this flank of the fire is lower risk of really rapid fire spread because it just has been burned in the last 4 years. Coming over here to the far kind of southwestern corner of the fire, there's some scattered heat in here still, but this fire also hasn't moved for 2 days on this flank along this road where they fired it. No growth on the fire up into here. I'm trying to remember the name of this creek, and Stratton Creek. So there's been a little bit of fire still active in the top of this drainage here. Yesterday, the fire was at this line. And so kind of in the head, the steepest part of the head of this drainage, the fire is active and there's quite a bit of heat. But then when we come up and go around, this is all has not moved around through here. A little bit of fire spread from yesterday's fire was out in here. So there's a little bit of intense heat on top of this hill. And this is spread. This is new. And same in the top of this drainage. So we talked, that's McNabe Creek. We talked yesterday just about how, it's tough. The terrain's dictating where we can fight this fire. Coming around, there's fire tied into this road. And, potentially they'll try to fire out this. This imagery was taken last night at 9. And then there's firing here down this ridge where there's probably some sort of dozer line. So they're doing kind of defensive firing here off their line. And on the maps, the line continues down through here. So this may all be fired by now, since last night at 9. Then we're down to the river, and this is all black here. And coming down from Rainy Falls, this is all cooled off, and there's been no heat really mapped on this part of the fire for almost a week. And then over here in Rum Creek, the fire ran out of there. And we kind of thought that would happen. There's a spot out here in Rum Creek. And still some more growth here, East Fork of Rum Creek, where we talked about all the air tanker use that kind of held this fire up here for days. And that's what ground firefighters will always tell you is air tankers don't stop fires. They kind of slow them down. You can throw a ton of mud on the ground, and that's what they did here. They threw an incredible amount of retardant on the ground here. But fire burns under retardant through sticks and pops up the other side. So it's good. It buys you time, but you still have to come in and put the fire out. And this is kind of this riparian area here where they dumped all this mud. And riparian areas are a hard place to fight fire. Even though they're kind of cooler and moister, they're overgrown and tough to get through. If any of you've gone hiking in creeks, you know that. Anyway, so this is still kind of an open chapter in this story. It looks on the maps like they've got dozer line down this ridge, and then they're probably going to come down and tie down to the river. And you can see that's been done before. This is an old fire scar out in here, old dozer line through here, and then old hand line down to the river. So eventually this is likely all going to fill in here, which seemed like it's kind of seemed like the strategy that's been on the wall for the whole time. We looked early on at whether or not we thought this mid-slope road here would hold it, and the answer is it has in some places, but really not much. Like this here has held on that road, and that's about it. Meanwhile, at the top of the hill here, Mount Peavine, we'll come around and look at this from the south. We talked about early on, we saw like that they were probably going to use this dozer line. They've used that dozer line. They've got other dozer line here that's kind of contained, so now they have to kind of tie their firing here from the dozer line back to here, because this is pretty much done. And so they're working on tying that in, I think. They're firing out this ridge, and they'll keep firing out this ridge. Out here and down. Unless they can figure out a way to turn it. Like, can they turn it at this road and get down to here? It's like things like this spot, that might be the plan, would be to turn it here. But then you've got the spot. So it's just a dynamic kind of situation but that's likely why they held it up here, would be if they thought they could turn it and use this road to tie the rest of it in. They don't want to give up this ground. They've got old clear cuts in here that work's been done to, spray them, plant them, manage them, right? So no one wants to burn this out on purpose unless they have to. But pretty much this fire down in here is pushing their hand. Fire established here is pushing their hand. This is pushing their hand. It's pretty... seems pretty likely that they're not going to be able to turn the corner here. Anyway, Rum Creek Fire. Good news with the bad weather coming in is just that they've made good progress on this east side of the fire that does face communities. The bad news is that you get these pieces of ground out there that you can't, maybe you can go direct, but it's tough. And let's look at their ops map and see if we can figure out anything about the strategy here on this flank of the fire. All right. All right, so this is the operations map from the fire. They've got detailed ops maps for each division, which is great if you're a division, but it's kind of hard to piece them together for me right now to kind of tell a story. So basically, we were just talking about the firing out this ridge, and if they might be able to turn it here on this road. They've prepped some Rotus line here, but that looks like it's been lost. And this is, I think, the road that we were talking about, whether or not they try to hold it there, and it doesn't look like they've prepped that. Oftentimes, just because a road shows up on the map doesn't mean it's a great spot for firefighting, and if it's too steep, or if it's got too many snags, or if they don't think they can get the road prepped in time, then they're not going to use it. So they're showing dozer line out this ridge and hand line all the way down to the river. They're showing that dozer line down here, where we talked about. They have it tied in, and whether or not they're going to be able to come back to here is what we've been talking about. Doesn't show any hand line right now connecting the old dozer line that we've been watching to the existing dozer line. They're showing hand line here on that knoll on the river, but it's not complete all the way through, so it looks like maybe the fire is going to burn to the river. There's kind of this funny loop of hand line. So it's kind of hard for me to tell what's going on here in Stratton Creek. They got dozer line pushed on some ridges, but they don't really have ridge systems here that really lend themselves super well to building a box on this side of the fire. They've got this major road that's shown in this kind of caterpillar black and white, but I can't really tell from the map what exactly the big box is going to be over here. They are showing hand line and dozer line over here where we talked about them firing that little finger down towards Rainy Falls Trail. And so you can kind of see that strategy there of continuing down from that firing. Like I was saying, we're talking about like how do you kind of put together a big box on this side. It looks kind of like you would come up this ridge. But that, that gives up a lot of ground in here, and no one wants to be fighting big box on this side of the fire in hot weather with winds. So it's a tough little puzzle. This little, one little section here is a tough puzzle. But the really good news is that the rest of the fire on this side is cooling off and hasn't moved for a couple of days, and that really frees up resources for them to really focus on this little spot out here. So that's about all I have to report on this fire. There's a link that I posted yesterday in the comments, and This was shared to me on a firefighter forum, and so I'm assuming it's public, or I think the team wouldn't circulate it. But if you click on it, it'll give you access to the maps for the fire, and also the day's incident action plan, which kind of lays out who's going where and doing what. Okay. And don't really have any questions up there, so I'm going to cut it off. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for supporting Lookout.